Awesome stuff. We are officially live on Life Hacks with Mac with Alessandro Ferullo. And we are talking to the Qigong master, as it were. Welcome to the show, Alessandro. How are you this week?
Great, thank you. Yeah, my lighting is not perfect, but hopefully it's good enough at the moment. Does it seem okay?
Yeah, it seems to be working. Excellent stuff. So we are officially live, and Alessandro, the last session we spoke about Qigong and a little bit about your background. And this week I wanted to get a little bit more insight into who Qigong can really work for before I go into the topic for the week. And give us a little bit of a flavor of what type of people you typically work with and who this can help.
Yeah, because just to recap a little bit, because Qi means energy, Gong means practice. In a way, we're all made up of energy. That's how we came into this world. We have this vital force, and it's the same energy or force that keeps nature alive. So, in a way, everybody, young children at the age of, as we know, they're very hyper till the age of maybe 9 or 10, they start calming down. From a Qigong point of view, the energy is very alive and all over the place, literally. That's the term we often use, children. And then it kind of settles down. And as we become older, the body tends to maybe accumulate certain habits or tensions. So for a child, it could benefit a child to maybe calm them down. And sometimes there are very nice, simple practices that they can do, like being out in nature and imagining they're standing like a tree, just for example. And children love those kind of things because actually that's who we are. We are connected to this natural energy. So they can benefit, children if they may be hyper, or the opposite. If children are very languid and a bit lacking in energy, it can help to kind of activate a bit. But truly, I think it's better known for adults where they have certain health issues. And, we don't want to make any claims, but there's a lot of scientific studies, and we can always put a link in below where people can look up, for example, if you just put any ailment in, like Qigong for arthritis, you will find articles relating to how it can help certain conditions. But ultimately, if we have a pain in the body, and this is what an acupuncturist will tell you as well, it tends to be something blocked in that area. So they might put some needles in to release the energy. In Qigong, we would move the energy through the body. So I'd say for adults, ideally, it's designed to help to clear issues that they've got in the body, which we want to do in a natural way. Because sometimes if we do take, medication, as we know, there are lots of side effects. So I'm not against, medication in certain cases, but I think a lot of things, if somebody has a headache, for example, maybe we can do practice later on that. How can we clear a headache in 2-3 minutes with Qigong?
Oh, wow.
Whereas, if we take an aspirin, it's great, it goes, but then, over time, people might get used to these things. Or, for example, sleep is a good example. If people are taking tablets to go to sleep, they take one, then they might take two, and then they don't work anymore. So because we are energy beings, Qigong, I would say, is kind of for everyone. But typical people I'm working with at the moment, I've got a GP who has a lot of stress. So stress is held in the body. I have people who are in their 80s where the mobility is kind of affected. So Qigong can help to get the body stronger, more mobile in those cases. Some people having issues with sleep, so it can help them to calm the emotions. So because it works on different levels, for some people it might be physical, some people might be mental, to help their mental state. Other people, it might be spiritual. And when I say spiritual, we are all, spiritual beings in a human body, even though people have a resistance slightly to the word spiritual. But really, it's no big deal. But Qigong works on all the three levels. So sometimes people might do a practice and just feel very good and they're not sure why. because they're reconnecting to a deeper part of themselves.
So, when it comes to the science or the art of Qigong, I find it, especially after the few sessions that I've done with you, that even though it sounds a little bit out there, it's actually quite logical with regards to the movement and the energy. Whereas when we take we seem to be having a slight technical issue there with there we go. So one of the challenges that I see when it comes to pharmaceuticals is, like you say, we can firstly, our body gets used to it. There are side effects, but also the fact that we're not physically changing how we are doing things, but then we're putting a pharmaceutical into our body to. It's almost like, and I'm trying to use a very simplistic explanation here, but it's like I'm sitting on the sofa. I don't want to go for a run, but I'm going to take a tablet that is, gonna thin my blood so that it will give me the result of a run, as an example.
Yeah.
It's like, so with Qigong, I've noticed the fact that the movement and the energy opens up, certain parts of the body, and then allows better blood flow and energy to flow. So, for somebody like myself who was initially a little bit skeptical, I found it quite fascinating and logical when I was going through the experience, to learn how that works. And today we're specifically talking about how can I clear aches and pains, and I know a few people that are suffering with some aches and pains that I've spoken to today, so I'll be getting them to watch this video afterwards. But let's delve into that. And if you're watching this and you've got any questions or specific ailments or aches and pains that you specifically want to say, hey, Alessandro, how do I fix this? How do I deal with it? Throw that in the comments and let Alessandro answer those for you. So Alessandro, over to you. Tell me more about how do you deal with clearing aches and pains?
So you've asked a good question there, and as an example, because we're sitting a lot these days, I'm just going to stand to explain this for a minute. But we're sitting a lot, so we tend to have issues maybe with the lower back, the hips, the knees, and one of the main reasons, and it makes sense, is if we're sitting a lot, these areas get a bit lazy or underused. So what we're doing in Qigong is we're moving the energy through the body and through these areas, down through the feet into the earth. So we're getting the flow of energy back into the body. What tends to happen, if the area gets lazy, the energy is blocked here. And if you could photograph it, which we can with things like curl-in photography, you can actually photograph the energy in people. And when an area is weak or depleted of energy, the energy, you can see it coming off there. So often when people, for example, need hip replacements, the hip has just become lazy and underused. And actually in Qigong terms, it's quite easy to get the energy back to these joints that get lazy, and it's very effective. So if we do these things regularly, I believe we can avoid a lot of these even operations. And I've known many people who have avoided operations when they were told they needed them by doing Qigong, by strengthening the body firstly, getting the energy moving through the body. And it makes sense, if the energy is back moving through the joint, then that's what we need to be doing. So if somebody says to me, I've got a knee problem, to me immediately it's like, okay, energy is coming to the knee and it's leaking off. So I would get the energy through the knee, through the feet, into the earth, and let's see what happens, and softly bend the knees so that the knees aren't locked. And many of these habits, as you say, like daily habits, the way we stand, the way we hold ourselves, if you look at most people at a train station, hardly anyone is standing with their feet parallel, aligned, which is a Qigong typical standing posture where your spine is aligned, your body is balanced left and right. But most people are slightly, just have a look at the station. They're either leaning on something or resting on one leg, or their neck is collapsed. But if you really stand well and aligned, then you're getting energy from the earth. The spine has strength. The head is slightly up towards, the heaven. In Qigong, we talk about heaven and earth, the yang and the yin. It's all about balance. So often our energy is a bit mixed up. And I think it's having that awareness. So when we do this kind of practice, I can be aware if I have a pain somewhere, I can do something very quick to clear it. I don't need to think, oh, I need a painkiller, or, how long is this going to stay? And if we can deal with things quickly, then it's a lot easier than allowing things to build up. And I think people tend to think if you have an ache or a pain, it's only going to get worse. My mum used to think that. She used to say, in Sardinia, she said, when I'm 60, I'll get arthritis in my neck. I said, why? She said, because everyone in Sardinia does. And I thought, if you're saying that, you're kind of inviting it, saying, where are you? I'm 60 now. I'm waiting for this. Why? So in Qigong, it's kind of clearing a lot of this erroneous thinking, which society makes us think if we have a problem, it's either going to stay the same or get worse. In Qigong terms, we want to reverse it. We want to rejuvenate. And often they talk about going back to the kind of prenatal state, which is when the body was kind of perfect and soft and pliable. And a lot of people notice with the practice, they become more connected, more, softer and more flexible. So we are reversing, in a way, the aging process. And one of the benefits is kind of longevity, but living a longer and healthier life. No point living a longer life when we're ill or suffering.
So, and that's, I think a really important point, because that longer and healthy life is I've been involved in so many conversations where people have gone, listen, if I'm ill, rather just take me out, because I don't want to be ill and living a long time and go through that suffering. And with these things, so I'm just thinking, the last 2 years of the pandemic, and how many people have been sitting in front of their laptops for copious amounts of hours, and the aches and pains they have as a result, but that they'll put down to other things. And whether that be posture, whether that be leaning on a desk as an example, and stopping the blood flow going to their fingers because they're leaning on the side of the desk as an example. So it's all little things that people don't think about, that this practice can easily help repair, as it were.
Yeah, and even we can talk about this. I don't know if it's in the session today, but posture. How do we sit? And I talked about standing just now, but even how do we sit in front of the computer? There are ways that we can sit where the energy is blocked in the shoulders, in the arms, in the lower back, in the spine. So we can talk about how to sit, in an effective way, so we can be productive and aware of the body, because the body actually always tells us if we really listen to it. But often we're not really listening to it. We think, oh, I'm tired, let me just have a coffee or energy drink. Actually, I'm tired means my energy is low. What can I do to activate the energy? What can I do differently, rather than take a stimulant of some kind? And I mean stimulants, even coffee. People just think, I need my 5th coffee today. It's like, you don't really, you don't really, because it's almost like a fake stimulant that keeps you awake for a while, and then it comes down, as we know, and then we think, oh, I'm tired again, let me take something else. So it's the body is miraculous. It has all the solutions. It's the best pharmacy in the world, but we need to go into the pharmacy.
There we go, we're back again. So Alessandro, what I was thinking is, one of the most common things that I hear people complain about is headaches, as an example. And you were talking about that earlier. And, how would people go about, as an example, somebody who's watching right now, that is sitting there and they've got a headache and they think, I just, how do I end this thing? How do I, get me some painkillers?
Yeah. So that's a great question. One of my favorites is headaches, not because I like them, but because I hardly ever in my life get them, thank God. But also if I do get them, I've learned with Qigong. So we can do this together. If people are watching, even if they haven't got a headache, this will help mental clarity. It'll help the mind to be more open. And what happens with headaches, it tends to happen, is the energy between the front and the back, so the yin and the yang part of the body, the hair and the face, is a bit stuck up here in between. Literally.
I don't think I have that problem.
Okay. If I drew an imaginary line where your long flowing hair used to be. But this line is always here, actually, even if you haven't got the hair. What happens is that the mind, the thoughts get a bit stuck between the face and the hair. And the hair is heavy, the heavy part tends to be, and the face is the clear part. What often happens is the thoughts are towards the front. So almost like when people have a long fringe up to the eyes, there's a kind of heaviness there. You can feel, when you look at somebody like that, it's almost like that fringe is kind of heavy and hanging. It's like a blind hanging down. So with the hair, what we can do, if we do this together, just clean off from the face initially. It's like cleaning off any dusty feeling off the face. So sometimes any heaviness or tension, or sometimes I hear people talk about masks. In life, we have, certain roles we play. I'm a father, I'm a, Qigong teacher, I'm this, I'm that. I don't need any masks, actually. But when I do this, it feels like I've got something on my face or tension, and people can pick that up. So just cleaning off from the face is a good way to start, and feeling the face a bit clearer. And then the division between the hair and the face, this division, to clean this division, this is where often the thoughts, the tension builds up between the hair and the face. So we're kind of taking out all the dusty feeling from here. And then sort of energetically, without touching the face, this is, I think, one of the most effective. If we only remember this one, it's really very useful. We're moving the energy from the front to the back of the head. So we're pushing the energy or tension, whatever is in the front, to the back where it belongs, to the hair and down off the neck. So kind of clearing and cleaning the head. And if we look up, we can breathe into the eyes, breathe into the brain. So we're clearing this whole area of the head. And this is a very simple way to quickly clear the mind and oxygenate the brain, and also get rid of headaches. So a good story I sometimes like to share is I had somebody he was about 75, and he used to love doing this, when he learnt it. So every night, and he was completely, he'd lost all his hair at that age. And he used to do this 50 times every night. And he told me after a few weeks of coming to the class that his black hair started growing again from his head. So I'm not making claims that your hair growth will improve. But what's interesting is, often when we do these Qigong techniques, many people have different results. They might feel a lot of the tension dropped off. If there is a headache, that could be cleared quite quickly. Even a hangover, this is really useful for clearing hangovers, for example. I've heard it said, if you've got a date and you do this a few times, you become more attractive. So I haven't tested that because I don't really have many dates, but and I'd love to hear from people. If you're on a date, just clear the head. And often when we do that, like our eyes a bit more sparkly, the brain a bit more alert, and like more energy opened up here. This area tends to be very congested. Our thoughts are here, our memories, we're holding on to things. What if we could just clear the mind, keep it open, energy is coming through and down, and people hopefully will feel lightened up a bit.
Sure. And tell me, with this, some people who may have just dropped into the conversation at this stage, seeing us waving our hands around, and thinking, what is Mac and Alessandro up to now? What is the kind of maybe science or thinking behind it that will give people a little bit more insight, if that makes sense? Because a lot of people, they have to have a reason why, or an explanation, or if that makes sense. So
that's a great question, and it's very simple. I'm sure we've all heard of the yin, the yang, the opposites. So sadness, joy. The heart is the organ of joy, also sadness. If people are too one way, then it's out of balance. So sadness can really affect us. Actually, too much joy, even people can, have heart issues, if the heart is too active. So it's always getting that balance between, and the body is exactly the same. Imagine a good example is like a glass of muddy water. The body, the mind is almost like a turbulent glass of muddy water. Now, if you leave that water to stand for quite a while, all the heaviness will sink down, the mud will sink, the water's clear. The body's kind of the same. So what we're doing in Qigong is we're moving this muddy, heavy element down to earth where it belongs. The earth is yin, we call it. The heaven is yang, pure and, if you like, heavy element. So when we're doing the Qigong, we're always moving the heavy element to where it belongs. When we do that, incredible things can happen to the body, like the head feeling clearer, thinking, God, I haven't felt this for years. I wonder why. Well, because we've moved a lot of the energy through the body down to earth, and that's the natural state. So in Qigong, actually, we're coming back to our natural state. We're not doing anything weird. And when I say natural state, if you imagine like a tree, even I'm sitting here, my feet are in the ground, I feel like I'm grounded into the earth. If I'm grounded into the earth, the heaviness is down here. It's not up here anymore. My mind is clearer, open. But what tends to happen with most of us and the energy is that the heaviness is up at the top, and we're not even aware of our connection to the earth. So we're kind of always in that murky state. So with Qigong, we're moving and rebalancing yin and yang. When the two are in balance, the body is in balance, the mind is in balance, the emotions are in balance. So it works on all those levels, and that's the simplest kind of explanation. And a tree is a great example. The tree, the branches up into the sky, absorbing the light, same as us, and into the earth, it's getting the energy, the nourishment from the earth. We're natural beings. We're like a tree in a way, even though we're moving. But the tree, there's a lot of activity, even though it's just standing in the earth. It's absorbing, 10 liters of water a minute an oak tree can absorb. So there's a lot going on. Same with us, but there's too much going on here. So in Qigong, we're often clearing the mind, settling the emotions, settling the energy, and then we can function. Everything functions better.
I love your explanation with regards to letting the mud settle, because that's just such a powerful image. When we are in that state of overwhelm or confusion, or the headache and everything else, is instead of shaking the bottle is just letting it settle and let clarity return. And I'm just thinking of that image in my head because I'm quite a visual person, and I'm just imagining that clear line between the mud at the bottom and the clear water on the top, and how different that can be, if we just don't or spend more time being aware of that. so that we can return to that state, as opposed to most people tend to be very reactive in this world. We wake up in the morning, we rush, we do this, we do that, and there's no real control over our breathing, our movements, and everything else. It's all reactive, and then we ended up working crazy hours trying to make things happen that we haven't got the clarity of mind to deal with necessarily. So I see this being a something that I wasn't aware of, but glad that it came into my life through the wonderful Sue Plumtree who referred you, and that this is something that I'd like to get the rest of the world to just have a look at, just have an open mind to, because we don't know what we don't know at the end of the day. And this is why it's so important to just explore and get to know different ways of doing things. So if anybody's watching right now, Alessandro, and they had a very specific pain or ailment, regardless of where they're in the world, you do a lot of your stuff on Zoom as well. But what is the best way for them to reach out to you and discover how you can potentially help them, as an example?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a YouTube channel where if you look up Qigong, Qigong, with Alessandro, you'll find my channel. There's lots of videos there, but to clear headaches, for older people, some videos in Italian and French, videos to help your digestion, your sleep. So I put a lot of shorter ones, but if people want, one-to-one, obviously I'm on LinkedIn, and you're helping me a lot with my profile. So I'm getting more interest there, and I'm just there, to help people integrate this into daily life. And I love what you said about, clarity, mental clarity, because ultimately I'd say with the pace of the world and the media and our phones, every so often giving us messages, that muddy glass state is the state that many of us are in all the time. Now, when you're in that state, you're not even aware you're in that state. That's a normal, natural state, I would say, these days. So when you take the time, like you said, to pause, breathe, let it settle, just notice what happens. I think we actively need to do that, to pause and just stop and take some time. And ideally, I do that in the mornings before once I wake up, and at night. And when I do that, this mental clarity just makes me realize I don't need to be doing 100 things. There's only 3 things, and these are the priorities. So Qigong has helped me a lot with a kind of mental clarity, which before I just kept running and trying to do so much. And that's exhausting and stressful and overwhelming. And I would say that's a state of many of us, as we're bombarded more and more by social media, news. So I would say it's really valuable, even if you're sitting in an office, just take 2-3 minutes, an hour, and just breathe and sit and just take time for yourself, and don't do anything, and let that mud settle, and then just see what happens.
Sure. I'm just that image is just so strong for me to look at that settling of the mud, because all that distortion and everything else that's going on in our lives can easily contribute to not seeing clearly what's on the other side. And it's kind of ironic, because we're in a position where time is the only thing we have, and we feel that we're losing time by slowing down, taking time out. And it's interesting, because a few years ago, I had somebody who was working for me who hadn't taken a holiday in about 7 or 8 years. And I asked why, and they said, well, I just can't afford to. I have to keep going. I have to keep going, so that he's just pedaling and ultimately muddying the water, because he's just churning the water around and around and around all the time. And I said to him, you have to take time for yourself, to give yourself time. And he went on his first break in 6 or 7 years, but came back refreshed and questioning his methods because of the fact that he was sitting there, why have I been, like a swan above the water, but underneath pedaling like hell, and I don't even know why. I just, because I think I'm going towards something, but in fact I've gone further away from it because I haven't taken time out to reflect and re-energize. So I'm looking forward to the next few topics, because we're going to discover so much more through this journey. And the next one is, how do I avoid overwhelm at work and or at home? And I think that and so clearing that muddy water is going to be an interesting conversation on the next one. Alessandro, thank you so much for spending the time today and investing in trying to help and make a difference and helping people get to know what they don't know. I think education is such an important thing, and to explore different topics. So any final words for you for people this week?
Yeah, I heard something the other day which I absolutely loved. Somebody said to me, make time with the unknown. Like sometimes we don't need to have things planned for every moment of the day. So she said in her calendar, she puts down a date with the unknown every week, and nothing is planned for that. Whatever, it could be an hour, could be an afternoon, it could be on a weekend, where we just make time for ourselves. And when I say the unknown, it's not something weird. Just don't make any plans. Go for a walk, or write things down, or spend time with somebody you haven't for ages. But if you put it into your calendar, that is as valuable as working I'd say 5 hours a day ineffectively. Make time with the unknown. In that time, I tell you, it's a gold mine. We can get ideas, solutions, realize why on earth are we rushing around, why is this water so muddy, and just allow things to settle and make that a habit, because we deserve it. Everyone deserves to be healthy, happy, and I think we really need a balance of activity and stillness. And stillness has many gifts, and with Qigong we'll look into that more, on how we can even be in a meeting with others and be still with our breathing and be aware and be present and be effective and productive. We don't have to be always actively doing. And I think my teacher often talks about unlearning. Qigong often is a process of unlearning things that don't serve us. We tend to accumulate things. It's like clearing every day, clearing more stuff. And with the self-healing and with the Qigong, we're clearing further and further.
Awesome stuff. Well, I'm really looking forward to the future of and our next conversations. And for those of you that have watched, if you've learned anything through this, or you've got any takeaways, please throw those in the comments. If you have questions for Alessandro for the future sessions that we have, please put those in as well, so that we can address those as we go along. And other than that, I want to wish you an incredible week further, and stay blessed, and look after yourself and your health and your well-being. And make sure that you go and follow Alessandro on LinkedIn. Go and check him out on YouTube, and go and connect, because he's an incredible human being. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.
Bringing this to the world. Thank you.
Only a pleasure.